Tonight on the Daily Debrief, sentencing for the convicted murderer of an Air Force reservist.
God help the next person she perceives as doing her wrong.
His family lashes out.
Claudia thinks she's the smartest person in the room, not this room.
And so does the judge. Plus, a hearing in the disappearance of a beauty queen. Also, evidence about finances and strange web searches in the case of a family of 4 found dead in the California desert. This is the Daily Debrief for Friday, February 8th. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Debrief. A guilty plea in a Colorado courtroom today involving the presumed death of a mother who's been missing since Thanksgiving. Kelsey Barrett is feared dead, but authorities have not found her body. Her fiancé, Patrick Frazee, is under arrest. Now another woman, Crystal Lee Kenny, has pleaded guilty to a charge of disposing of evidence in the case. Authorities believe Kenny is the one who disposed of Kelsey Barrett's cell phone after it pinged off of towers in Idaho. That's where this new defendant lives. Kenny said she would testify against Frazee as part of her guilty plea. We will keep watching that case. Sentencing today for the Ohio woman convicted of murdering her military husband. Claudia Hoerig took the stand and admitted she pulled the trigger before fleeing to Brazil. The question for the jury was whether her actions were premeditated or a fit of rage. There's a huge difference in punishments for those two different crimes. The jury sided with the prosecution and convicted her of the top charge. Herron did not speak at her own sentencing, but she promised to write a letter. Why? Well, when there's no one left to blame but yourself, just blame the media.
She is not going to speak today because the press has misquoted her countless times, and throughout this case, she's going to prepare a written letter to address both the family and the media, and will provide it to her public defenders to provide to the press. She feels she's been misquoted numerous times, such as when she says instantly, it's been printed easily, and Fairy and Mary. So to avoid embarrassment and misunderstandings, she'll be addressing everyone in writing at a later opportunity as to that.
Okay, here's my response to some of that. First, video recordings don't misquote, and we broadcast the entire trial here on Law and Crime. We didn't edit it either. It's all there. Second, the best time to address the press is when the press is all assembled there at the sentencing. Why wait? Anyway, the defense asked for a sentence in a lower range, arguing that any premeditation was limited in duration and due to mental health factors. Here is the state's recommendation for sentencing.
It is our recommendation to this court, considering her testimony, the totality of the evidence, that this defendant be sentenced to 25 full years to life in prison, which would be served consecutively to the 3-year gun specification for a total of 25 years to life before eligibility for parole. And that should be given full credit for time served since April 20th, 2016. Thank you.
I think you meant 28 years. I understood that. All right.
I'm sorry, 28 years to life.
I understood.
That was the state's request. Victim Carl Herrig's younger brother told the story of the defendant's extradition. Remember, she fled to Brazil after pulling the trigger.
Claudia's decision to needlessly take my brother's life with no regard for the effects it would have on others is unimaginable. The loss of my brother is beyond words. The fact Claudia so arrogantly fled to a foreign country after killing my brother has been both heartbreaking and frustrating. Knowing Claudia selfishly went on with a normal life, starting a business, and getting remarried as if nothing had happened, is difficult for me to comprehend. She lived free and in the open for over 9 years, while my family and I struggled to have her detained. This nightmare was followed by almost 2 years of her filing numerous appeals to stay in Brazil. Her selfish and deceptive actions of playing games with her U.S. citizenship to maintain her freedom in Brazil reveals her true character. It has been exceptionally brutal and emotionally draining for my family to have spent 10 years and 10 months fighting to have her extradited from Brazil. There have been countless days writing, calling, emailing to gain support, missing work, attending meetings, just to bring her back to the United States. It literally took the efforts of a team, family, friends, the prosecutor, law enforcement, politicians, the state and justice departments, who have spent countless time and effort over 10 years and 10 months to finally have her extradited back to Trumbull County. I ask you to consider Claudia's behavior, fleeing to a foreign country, fighting extradition, a lack of remorse, committing perjury, making false claims, and attempting to smear numerous people, including Carl, myself, and members of my family. United States officials entered into an agreement with Brazil which limited the sentence Claudia can serve in prison. This agreement was necessary to secure her extradition. I believe we should honor this agreement. Therefore, I fully support the prosecutor's recommendation of 25 years to life, plus 3 years for the gun specification. Carl was a man of honor, and he would have wanted us to honor this agreement.
The victim's daughter told stories about her father and, for a time, also lashed out at the defendant.
My dad taught me a lot of things. He taught me that nothing is too hard to overcome, even when it seems impossible. He taught me to be positive even when I really, really don't feel like it. He taught me to just try, to go for it. And Dad made success look effortless. I wasn't old enough to know that probably wasn't the case. So I have to assume that how to do that effortlessly was a future lesson. Dad taught me everything in life is either a lesson or a joke, and if you're really lucky, it's both. He taught me respect others, and respect yourself, respect knowledge, beauty, and joy, respect the world, and it will show you what is actually important. I want to list every moment that it has hurt me that Dad's gone. I want to talk about my beautiful kids he never met. I want to talk about grief and missed opportunities, but I would never be able to stop. I want to list all the ways listening to Claudia excuse her actions for the last year was inaccurate and unbearable, how it was unfair to my family, my dad, and myself. I want desperately to pull things apart, analyze them, and tell the whole world how ridiculous everything she said was. But my dad wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't be very happy with me if I did it either. He was better than that, so the best I can do is listen to his lessons and be the daughter he raised me to be. I have pages and pages of notes. I realize now that I will never have the words, but the gist of it is this. My dad was the greatest, most wonderful, best ever, should have won a trophy dad. I never told him that. Maybe I didn't know it yet, or maybe I was too young to understand. But I never told him, and it is completely and totally unfair that he isn't in my family or my family's life anymore.
Next, Carl Hoerig's nieces read a statement from his parents. They basically called Claudia Hoerig a liar.
The Christmas seasons are now hard to deal with, as all of the holidays are. He loved to celebrate with all our families. Carl was a brilliant, amazing, kind, loving person who focused on the best qualities in everyone and overlooked the flaws. We won't get to see what new avenue Carl would pursue in education and careers. Sadly, Carl didn't get to guide his children into adulthood and meet his grandchildren. They would have been the joy of his life. Claudia took Carl's life. We have lived with this reality close to 12 years, and the thought that as parents we should have done more to protect him. Ed and I feel this pain every day. When we told Carl we really feared for his life, he said, "Don't worry, I've got this." Carl planned to move out of his house after Claudia appeared in Ravenna Court March 13, 2007 on an OVI. She was nervous about going to court, and he wanted to be there to support her. That was Carl. He would be there for her. Even though we saw the signs, it was hard for us to really believe someone could be so evil. We have listened to Claudia try to trash Carl and his family. The people who knew Carl know how he was and how good his character. Our retirement years have been spent in the quest to bring Claudia to justice. Claudia has shown no remorse for what she has done. God help the next person she perceives as doing her wrong.
Another niece struggled to read a statement from the victim's brother. The family continued here yet again to slam the defendant and talked again about the deal prosecutors needed to strike with the government of Brazil to bring Claudia Hoerig to justice. Guess we don't have that. Let's turn now to the judge's actual sentencing of Claudia Hoerig.
Now, from the beginning, your actions spoke volumes. You never denied killing Major Herron. However, your statements always evaded taking sole responsibility for your action. Your statements under oath at trial acknowledged that you delivered a final blow to the head of Major Hoerig at close range, yet you refused to acknowledge any culpability. The court further notes that you never showed actual remorse for your actions. You attempted to deflect the blame at each and every turn. In fact, the only time you showed any genuine emotion was when speaking of your family. The jury found you guilty of aggravated murder with prior calculation and design, and it is now the time for this court to impose sentence for that crime. Taking into consideration the principles and purposes of sentencing, pursuant to 292911, the court finds that you do not have any substantial prior criminal record. However, in regard to the sentencing guidelines under Section 292912 of the Revised Code regarding the seriousness of a criminal act, the court finds there is no more serious action than aggravated murder. Furthermore, you committed the aggravated murder of your husband with advanced plotting and preparation, as demonstrated by your actions in the days leading up to the murder. Your actions clearly demonstrated prior calculation and design. In addition, your relationship to the victim, to wit, your husband, must also be considered. You made a conscious decision to end the life of your husband without any consideration of his life or the lives of his children or his family. The court has considered these factors along with your lack of any genuine remorse or accountability.
That was some of the strongest language we have heard from the bench in some time here on the Law and Crime Network. Now, the sentence.
Unfortunately, nothing this court does can bring back Major Herron or lessen the physical and emotional loss to his family and friends. Closure is a word often used, but perhaps never truly attained in these instances. The family and friends of Major Herron will never forget him. Perhaps their memories of him will be some small comfort in remembering the man they loved, the man that served our country in the United States Air Force. But they will never forget that it was your heinous actions that took him away. Now, Ms. Hoerig, your sentence shall be as follows. As to the crime of aggravated murder, pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Sections 292902 and 03, the court sentences you to a term of life imprisonment with parole eligibility after a full 25 years. In regard to the firearm specification under 2941.145, the court sentences you to 3 years of mandatory incarceration to be served prior to and consecutive to the underlying offense, for a total sentence of life imprisonment with parole eligibility after 28 full years.
Barely a flinch from this defendant at any point in this sentencing hearing. Joining me tonight is forensic death examiner Joseph Scott Morgan. Joseph, good to see you again.
Good to see you too, my friend.
Okay, so the forensics here were some of what did this defendant in, especially the trajectory of the bullets. There was that final shot to the head, basically standing above the victim. That doesn't sound like self-defense like the defendant claimed it was.
No, it doesn't. She planned this and plotted it. She had this gentleman in what's referred to as an asymmetrical position in the infamous stairwell and fired down upon him, striking him and killing him. And she shot him several times. The jury just didn't buy it, Aaron. And, watching this trial all along, you kind of got the feeling that the defense was essentially doing the best they could with what they had.
I would agree with that. I mean, look, she came up with this story that she was being abused emotionally, psychologically, forced to wear certain sexy outfits, trying to say that he was some kind of sexual deviant or pervert or something, and that this riled her up to the point where she felt she had to shoot him. That was her version of the story, but her family got up there and said, look, that sounds absolutely nothing like the man that we know. And they were very adamant about that.
Yeah, they were. You know, as you know, Aaron, I've worked with the dead my entire adult life with the coroner in New Orleans and the ME in Atlanta, and I can tell you this about the dead. Once they're gone, you can say anything you want to about them. And she didn't hold back. She did. She really painted this guy out to be a monster.
The family wasn't having any of that. And look, the gun sight, the laser sight on the gun, she claimed she bought the gun because she was contemplating suicide, maybe, but she really told the gun shop owner it was for protection. Yeah. You know, that fell flat, too, because normally she would just say, no, I don't really need the sight. I just need this for protection. That's a little bit more precise than what I need. The jury turned around and believed, look, you wanted that laser sight because you wanted to shoot him.
Yeah, and I think that really sealed the deal. You know, an individual that's looking to take their own life, that, you know, she had experience with this weapon. She had fired this weapon. An individual that's looking to take their own life is not going to get a laser sight, place it on a weapon in order to ensure what? That you're going to hit yourself with it. And then this mysterious contraption that was developed, again, was another kind of red herring that was thrown in, which left us all kind of scratching our head on the air.
Oh, yeah, the alleged device she was going to use to shoot herself. And then when she tried to shoot herself, the gun suddenly jammed after she fired all these bullets at that particular victim. One final piece of this, though, honoring that agreement with Brazil was a big theme. State law calls for a life sentence, but she won't be eligible for parole until she's in her early 80s, according to this extradition agreement, basically, if we can call it that, with Brazil. So is that justice, possibly getting out when she's in her early 80s?
You know, I don't know, Aaron. The judge said a mouthful just a moment ago, and I've heard this before, as I know that you have. You know, there's nothing that the courts can do to heal this family, or certainly bring the major back from the dead. That's not even you know, possible. So yeah, she's going to be into her early 80s. I expect she'll have a rather interesting stay at the correctional facility there in Ohio.
Oh, certainly. Joseph, we'll check in again with you in a moment. Still ahead tonight here on the Debrief, a court appearance scheduled Monday in the cold case death of beauty queen Tara Grinstead. Plus, updates in the case we've been covering out of California, the McStay family murder trial. A mysterious check made out to defendant Chase Merritt, found on victim Joseph McStay's computer. Does the check lead prosecutors to a motive? That is when the Debrief continues. Welcome back to the Debrief. A bond hearing is set for Monday in a years-long Georgia cold case murder. Ryan Duke is charged with aggravated assault, burglary, and murder in the death and disappearance of Tara Grinstead. Grinstead went missing from her Ocilla, Georgia home in October 2005. Duke is said to have removed Grinstead's body from her residence. Her remains have never been found. Grinstead was a beauty queen and teacher who crossed paths with Duke at the high school where she taught history and he was a student. Now to the case of the Southern California man accused of killing all four members of the McStay family. Charles Chase Merritt was a business associate to father and husband Joseph McStay. First, the McStays disappeared. Then, authorities believe they may have fled to Mexico to avoid debts. Police even pointed to a video shot near the border as proof the family crossed over. Then the authorities backtracked when a dirt biker stumbled across the family's remains buried in the Mojave Desert in California. Prosecutors claim the defendant is the killer and that he killed for money. Last night, the prosecution showed images of a check from Joseph McStay's business made out to the defendant, Chase Merritt. The image came from a computer in the McStay family home. The date on the check, you can see it right there, February 4th, 2010. That is the date the McStays are believed to have disappeared. And the amount right there, $4,000. Is the check suspicious? Well, it was never cashed. Merritt told police there was always money moving back and forth between himself and McStay because the two regularly did business together. Also last night, an image grabbed from the defendant's cell phone, which indicates he was searching for information about theories involving the family's murder on February 26, 2014. That was 4 years after the McStays disappeared, about 3 months after their bodies turned up, and about 9 months before Merritt himself was arrested. This week, a state analyst showed enhanced security camera images taken from a neighbor's house. Prosecutors are arguing that this enhanced image shows the defendant's truck in the neighborhood where the McStays lived around the time they vanished. Traffic in the area is rare because the family lived on a dead-end street. The state believes the family was indeed murdered at home. Back one more time tonight with forensic death examiner Joseph Scott Morgan. So, Joseph, the family's bones indicated they were basically killed with a sledgehammer. It was brutal. But again, how is the prosecution going to link that fact to this defendant?
Yeah, that's pretty substantial evidence there, Aaron. But again, is it possible to put that sledgehammer into this fellow's hand that they're accusing this of? Is it possible to put him at the gravesite digging these holes? Is it possible to tie this check that they presented in court back to him? And again, finally, what's the harm in doing a search on your phone 4 years after your friends have gone missing? It's a bit of a reach, if you ask me. There's nothing substantive here that you could really hang your hat on.
I wonder the same thing. And look, I'm thinking about things in your line of work as a forensic death examiner that might help solve this case. Is there anything that comes to mind at this point?
Yeah, I think that if, I think going back, looking, we had mentioned the spatter that had occurred at one point in time, and that it was just done in kind of a passive way, that image was captured. And there, anything that is evidence of their killing having taken place at home is now long gone, I think, at this point, unless they have some kind of rabbit, the prosecution, that is, they're going to pull out of the hat. It's going to be very, very difficult to prove this case, I believe.
I agree. Joseph Scott Morgan, appreciate you joining us here on the Law and Crime Network this evening. We want to thank you folks for watching the debrief tonight. I will see you right back here at either 4 o'clock or at 5 o'clock on the Law and Crime Network. Our schedule here on the debrief depends on the schedule in the McStay family murder case. Sometimes that case does not meet and they're not in session at all. On those days, we're on at 5. If that case is live, we're here at 4, just to keep you on your toes. Live trial coverage resumes on the Law and Crime Network Monday at 9 o'clock Eastern. Up next, Brian Ross investigates. Good night.